You're listening to Technado. Welcome and thanks for joining us for another episode of Technado. Before we jump in, just a quick reminder, Technado is sponsored by ACI Learning, the folks behind IT Pro. So if you want to get a discount on your IT Pro membership, you can hop over to the website and use that code Technado30 for 30% off. Don't forget, we love those courses. That's our day job, and it's our life's joy and passion. You might have noticed I'm in a little bit of a different environment today. We're going to do things a little differently this week and next week. Daniel's actually going to be joining us from his spaceship. So he is currently, I don't know, Daniel, how are you feeling?
I feel pretty good. Thanks. Most people probably don't know this. You'll notice I have a little bit of a contraption going on the old arm here. I had shoulder surgery last week and I can't drive, which is why I'm not in the studio, but luck would have it, I have my own home studio that I use for filming things like YouTube and just fun stuff for myself. So we get to use the advent of modern technology to help bridge the gap in between the times that I cannot be in studio, which, like you say, will be this week and next week. But also, what's a little bit fun that's going to be in this episode is from being intubated, my voice is a little raspy and weak. So it'll be a fun struggle. But I'm here.
I will try to talk a little more so you can talk a little bit less. Shouldn't be a problem. I usually don't have an issue talking, but
no, you don't. Anybody that knows you.
That's true. That is true. I'm a yapper, if nothing else. But yeah, you get to see a little bit of Daniel's home studio. If you didn't know, he's going to be the next Mr. Beast, of course. So you get to take a little peek at some of the... Yeah, he laughs. But if you go look at his YouTube channel, he's well on his way.
It's YouTube's best kept secret.
It's
is my YouTube channel.
Best kept secret because he purposefully keeps it a secret. Nobody go watch. Nobody go look. No, you got some cool videos.
Nothing to see there.
I would encourage people to go check it out. But it's neat to see some of the stuff in the background there of your studio. Got your guitars and your pop figures and everything. So you guys...
Yeah, that's all real. That's not one of those virtual backgrounds.
Yeah, you get a little sneak peek into the world and mind of Daniel, which is a scary place. But speaking of scary things, we have quite a few articles this week. We're going to do things a little bit differently. We have lots and lots of news pieces that came up, so we are going to basically try to rapid fire through all of them. We don't have a deep dive for you this week, but we do have a lot of news to get through. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. This is an old favorite segment of ours, and it's a little bit of a triple feature this week, Behind Bars.
Break the law and you'll go to jail.
It's so true. We have a couple of different articles this... I'm sorry? Are you speaking from experience?
It's how we hope, right?
It's
break the law.
Yeah, that's true.
Go to jail. Doesn't always work out that way, but...
That's true. Well, in this case, we had a couple stories this week where that seems to be ringing true. This first one comes to us from the Hacker News. Some Chinese nationals were arrested for laundering $73 million in a pig butchering crypto scam. And they give us a little visual here in case you don't know what a pig looks like. That looks more like a piggy bank, though, so it's a little misleading. But anyway, so if you don't know what pig butchering is, Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this it's almost like you're kind of enslaved and forced to do this stuff, and you're threatened. And I was talking to Anthony about this a couple weeks ago. Am I on the wrong track?
Pig butchering, you're kind of on track, but I haven't heard it as far as like that you're enslaved in any kind of way. The way I've understood pig butchering to work is that you have people that create profiles, sock puppet accounts, really, really good looking profiles. They seem to have like a LinkedIn and internet presence, just like any normal person would. And then they reach out to people that look like good marks to build relationships. They build a relationship with you. And through that relationship, then they start to talk to you about investment opportunities. And if they start talking about investment opportunities and then they start coupling that with things like cryptocurrency, that's when the red flag should really be going off. But any rando that kind of reaches out to you from the internet and starts to build a relationship with you, you should be very leery of, because that is a very common way in which they can get you. And that the reason they call it pig butchering is because they're fattening you up. So they'll talk to you about this opportunity. Maybe they'll call it an opportunity for financial gain and reward. Man, they got the inside track. They sing a good song. They spin a good yarn about this financial opportunity that if you get on, you're going to pay out. And guess what? It does usually. Cool. And that builds trust. All right. So you're thinking, man, this person really does have the inside track. I only spent a little bit of money, but I made a good return. And then they come to you with another opportunity. and you invest in it, or they get you to install some software. Hey, this is the app you're going to need to do the next thing. Or maybe they've already done that with you already. App is basically malware. It does allow you to do make financial transactions, maybe, but ultimately it's for the ability for them to steal your money, right? So they're going to get passwords, they're going to have access to your mobile device, they're going to have access to your bank, to your crypto wallet, all that good stuff. That's exactly what they're looking for. So they continue to fatten you up. And as you put more money in, the fatter you get, quote unquote. And when you're ready for slaughtering, it's butcher time. That's when they abscond with all your finances and you're left crying, holding the bag. A lot of times you can't see this as far as, so this kind of crossbreeds with sextortion
Really?
because, yeah, because the marks they typically go after are people with money, but they can tell they're probably kind of lonely men.
Mm.
And it could be women though as well. It's not that it's not, but a lot of times it's lonely men with money. So they make these profiles look like, attractive women that are interested in something that they have, posted online that they are interested about. And they use that as their in to gain access to them and to start building that relationship. So whereas sextortion, they get you to, do something sexual on camera, or they're videoing that. So if you're having some sort of interaction with this person through the internet, they can record that and then use that to get you to give them money.
Right, like blackmail.
That would be a classic sextortion, but for pig butchering, it's usually just to steal your money.
Okay, I think where my wires were getting crossed, there was something a month or two ago where there was this big pig butchering operation that they were able to free a bunch of people from. And it was the people that were perpetrating this, that were fattening the pigs, as you called it, they had been enslaved and were being forced basically on threat of death, or they were threatening their families that you better make these calls and you better, do these interactions and get these people to give up money. Or we're going to kill you, basically. So I think that's where my wires were getting crossed. But in this case,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like this was it doesn't look like it was that kind of situation. But these two oversaw the people that were moving the money that they were getting overseas to other bank accounts. They've both been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering and 6 substantive counts of international money laundering. So they may face up to 20 years in prison on each of those counts. So if they do the time or they do the crime, they might do the time in this instance. We'll have to see.
Well, let's absolutely hope so. This is just one of those things that you're like, man, this is the worst part of humanity.
Yeah.
That why do people do this? I mean, is money that important to you that you would do this to people and you have no sense of human dignity to other people?
Right.
Don't do that. It's not awesome at all. So I hope they get the book thrown at them on this one.
Right. Yeah. How do you not feel guilty doing something like that? That's why, like, when I get a scam call, I don't really feel bad about keeping them on the phone and messing with them, because I'm like, you are like, it could have been some person that didn't know that this was a scam that picked
Right.
up, and they think they're getting a free vacation from the Holiday Inn, and they don't realize that very obviously they're not. And so I don't feel bad keeping you on the phone and messing with you a little bit. But I know I mentioned that this was a little bit of a triple feature this week. We have a couple other stories that are kind of along the lines of this Behind Bars segment. So this next one comes to us from Bleeping Computer. A U.S. woman allegedly aided North Korean IT workers in infiltrating 300 firms. And I love that they give us a little, probably AI-generated image there, but kind of cool looking. That's kind of hard.
Probably.
Probably. Well, I got to hedge my bets. Maybe they paid an artist to create that image.
I get you.
Maybe.
That's right.
Let's hope.
So, some artist is like, I made this with my own 2
This-
hands, and you called it AI generated. Oh,
You're
woe is
attributing
me.
it to the robots.
There's been quite a debate on that. I don't want to get into that here, but
Well, yeah,
I hear
we could do a whole episode on that if we wanted to.
that's right.
But in this case, there were 5 individuals charged this past week. U.S. citizen woman, along with a Ukrainian man and 3 other foreign nationals, for their involvement in cyber schemes, as they are called in this article. That's kind of fun. That generated revenue for North Korea's nuclear weapons program. So, I mean, this
That's
is
a
not
problem.
right. This is not just like, they wanted extra money in their pocket. I mean, that's not good either. But generating revenue for a nuclear weapons program, that's not small potatoes. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. We don't like that. From what I understand, North Korea, that's basically where they spend the vast majority of their money, or at least a lot of it. I don't know if it's the vast majority, but it is definitely quite a bit because nuclear, capabilities are not the cheapest thing in town. Otherwise, it would be at every corner drugstore, right? Oh, could you pop in and grab a box of Malox and some plutonium? That'd be great, Bob. No, so a lot of North Korean hacking activity is around stealing money for the purposes of, because they don't export anything, they don't create anything other than a military. It's kind of their thing. So everything that North Korea does is meant to kind of feed that war machine, at least from my understanding. I could be wrong. There's probably more nuance to it than that. But from what I've understood and what I've read, that is a lot of what they do is just basically try to have a strong military presence. They're very interested in building a strong nuclear presence as well. You'll notice this article, I think they refer to it as their illicit nuclear program to add a little context to their nuclear program. We don't like those kind of things. So that all said, what's really interesting to me about this article is their method. I get contacted a lot. People contact me on LinkedIn, especially from other countries, India, from the Middle East, around, Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, UAE, and things around that, and even European countries as well. People will contact me and talk to me about, I want to get a remote job in the US because the US pays well. And if I don't have to move to the US, which is a difficult thing, I totally get it, right? That's a smart play to try to make money in a country that's not your own. And you don't have to pay taxes. There's all sorts of benefits to being a remote worker. And we live in a time where remote work is common. This is what kind of allows for these types of scams, though. So, what this person did was kind of facilitate. They were the intermediary between North Korean hackers and US companies. So they would set up laptops that were in the US, that so they gave them US IP addresses, US geolocation, the whole 9 yards. And then that is where the base of operations were, quote unquote, for these Korean hackers. So even though they never left excuse me, they never left North Korea, they would just remote in to those devices that were in America and then do programming work. They were programmers, and they would do that. But I think they would also do other things as well. But they would basically use that money, funnel it back into North Korea, and give it to the government so they could spend it on their nuclear program.
Yeah, it was a chain of crimes here. There's not just one crime, there were many. But yeah, they committed
Yeah.
identity theft, it looks like, and you had mentioned how they had like all these laptops set up, and so they've created what basically it says was a laptop farm. So it looked like they were in the US, like you said, were paid millions for their work, and then the woman that kind of was aiding this processed their paychecks through her financial accounts, I guess to avoid any red flags. Although if I saw millions going through this one woman's account, I might be like, what's going on there? What's going on?
Yeah, maybe if they diversified a little bit, it wouldn't have been caught on so quickly, but definitely really crazy that this is why it's really, really difficult, nigh impossible, especially in some industries, for non-US citizens to work for them. Think of companies that work in aerospace or closely with the government. You can't allow people that don't have an interest in the US national security or just the US as a nation in general to be a part of that, because you can't trust it's not a smart idea to trust people, because that would be an easy way to let in someone that would not have those things in your best interest and would do nefarious things and do illicit things. So that's just kind of the world we live in until everybody's holding hands and singing kumbaya. I kind of just have to tell people who ask me about getting U.S. work is you have to go to the U.S. State Department, and they're probably going to tell you no.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, in this, it's like you said with the last one. Like, why do people do this? What's the point? Have you no shame or guilt? But in this case, I mean, obviously the money was being funneled back for a different purpose, a different cause. If
Yeah.
convicted, these folks are going to face quite a bit of prison time. The woman that was kind of heading this up and aiding this faces a maximum of almost 100 years in prison. And a couple of them, they're still only known by aliases, so they don't have their actual identities yet, but or they're not releasing their identities. So they face a maximum penalty of 20 years, which is still no small feat. That's no small time. I wouldn't want to spend 1 year in prison.
Yeah,
So
it's not like anybody would be holding their hand up. Well, yeah, I'll do 20 years. It's not a
yeah,
big deal.
no big deal.
Big deal to have your freedom taken away, and you should. You did a crime. This seems commensurate to what you did. So I'm not mad at it.
They estimate close to 7 million, I think, it was defrauded. So
Ooh.
definitely, I feel like the punishment in this case will fit the crime. Now, this next one was a little bit of a last-minute ad. This was just the other day, right before we were talking about filming. But there was an alleged dark web drug kingpin that was arrested, only 23 years old. I don't know, what was I doing at 23? Not this. Clearly, this guy was very busy. But he was arrested in New York for allegedly running the $100 million global dark web narcotics e-commerce operation, it's a lot of words, known as Incognito Market. I had not heard of this before reading this article. Was this a platform that you had heard of, Daniel?
I had not heard of it, but when I saw Incognito Market, my mind thought, so there's a market for you can make money by running in incognito mode? That's weird. That's a strange business model, but hey,
I should be
you
raking
can,
in the dollars in
good
that
for
case.
them, but
Yeah.
no, this was one of those wonderful dark web markets where they sell drugs and other horrific things. So I cannot be happier to see that got taken down, because that's some garbage right there. And $100 million this guy was making
Yeah.
off of this. Let that sink in. That this one market, this one darknet market, raked in $100 million.
Yeah.
Man,
And this is not,
humanity is probably a lot less off than I thought it was.
yeah, like this is not the only game in town either. I mean, this is one market, but
Oh.
obviously there's lots of them. So I can only imagine how much money goes in and out of that industry every year, if you can call it an industry, I guess. They're making
There's
money.
one
so.
less now.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. He also went by the pseudonym Pharaoh. So he, is very humble. He's accused of
Yeah, he's
having...
not a narcissist at all.
Right. No. He's accused of having run the entire business, so supervising all the operations, employees, vendors, customers, doing it all at the young age of 23. So, wow, he's got a lot of dedication. I'm not that much older than him, and I'm not doing that. But if only he could have used his powers for good. I
am that much older than him, and I'm not doing that well. Yeah, some people are born to run companies. They do say that it is a fine line, and that a lot of people that are CEOs or high-powered people in life, things like government officials, and that a lot of them probably show signs of psychopathy and narcissism and sociopathy, and that's why they get ahead, because they don't care about the rules or who it hurts, and they think they're awesome. So they just do whatever and expecting it to do well. And apparently that's the key to success in business and in life, is just, act like people are rungs on a ladder and not be afraid to step on them as on your way to the top.
Yeah.
And that's why most people, I think, do not succeed, at least to that level in life. I'm happy where I am. I got to be honest with you. If it takes hurting people and being just a complete douche to make it to that level in life, I'm happy to stay where I'm at. I gotta be honest.
I feel like as long as I can support myself and like I'm not, worried about like, if I'm not paycheck to paycheck, then I'd be pretty happy. I don't know that I'd need to go much beyond that, and I certainly wouldn't. Well, I mean, if I got to kill people to get there, or well, if I got to destroy some people's lives to get there, no big deal. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, who are they anyway, right?
Right. Nobody to me.
Yeah.
Now I think
That's how it works in the old depraved brain.
it's a good thing we have some empathy for others. That's one. We're pretty awful people, but at least we can say that about ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons that maybe this site brought in as much money as it did was it does say that it provided a user experience that was really just unmatched by these other underground sites, but was matched those offered by modern e-commerce sites. So slick user experience, vetting and registration of sellers. You could only access it, I believe, there's a little screenshot of what one of the pages looked like, the front page. You did have to access it through the Tor web browser, and they only accept cryptocurrency, or accept it, I guess, because I don't think it's either not active or...
You're done now.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrency is only for crime.
Right. I think, didn't we mention
Might
that?
have an argument.
It was like a week or two ago. There was cryptocurrency. What was it? A mixing site or something like that turned out they were money laundering.
I think that was a behind bar segment, actually. I think that guy went to jail.
Disappointed, but not surprised. So collected millions of dollars from Incognito, and now he's gonna do the time for it. So there's quite a bit this week in that category of news. People getting, and all of it was really in the same category as far as fraud and financial issues and making a lot of money off of stuff you shouldn't be making money off of. So it's good to see that they've at least been arrested. And in all three of these cases, we'll have to wait to see what kind of time they actually face. So maybe we'll see these folks again on a Deja News segment in the future. But it's not all we have today for news. We don't just have behind bars segments. This next one comes to us from GB Hackers. SonicWall SSL VPN exploit advertised on the dark web. So it's seen the release of a new vulnerability that targets specifically these SonicWall SSL VPN devices. Lets people enter private networks without permission. Now, that's a little scary for folks that do use those kind of devices. Daniel, is this something that I know this was one that you had sent to me and we kind of went over. What was it about this that stood out to you specifically?
So just a couple of things. This is honestly kind of just about everything you need to know is in the headline here. You're running SonicWall SSL VPN version blank. I'm sure they give the version here in the article. I didn't remember it off the top of my head. This is a real problem for you because the thing that you are using to protect your network or to give you some layer of protection is now an exposure. So there's a release of a new vulnerability that allows people to gain access to your network through said SonicWall VPN. So at this point, you need to be probably sweating, wondering, I wonder who's on my network, because I'm sure your network is being scanned at a rate that's unfathomable, as well as someone very well may have already have seen that you are exposed and might be trying to make inroads into your network, if not already there. So that's something you need to start your threat hunting. You need to start just checking your versions. If you're not staying on top of these things, it's kind of what the main idea is when it comes to watching the news, being informed. As someone who works in security, your job is to stay on top of the different things that are happening because you never know what's going to affect your environment. If you are running SonicWall SSL VPN, well, then this is hopefully not the first time you're hearing about it here on Technado. Hopefully you've been like, oh yeah, I got the advisory. I, downloaded and installed any kind of patching or mitigations that they advised me to do. And now I'm secure until the next iteration or whatever the case is. So ultimately, I just wanted to make sure that this is the kind of thing that got out there. And if you hadn't heard of it for whatever reason, and you are using SonicWall, their SSL VPN anyway, that you might want to go ahead and hit the old pause button and run out to the server closet and start looking for updates and downloads and mitigations and maybe even an advisory coming from SonicWall themselves.
Right. Yeah. It says they haven't publicly commented on the exploit yet, but this was pretty recent. So I'm sure at some point soon, hopefully they'll say something about it. Hopefully have a patch of some kind. But for now, the advice is basically the same as what we usually see in situations like this. Make sure you got the most recent firmware, you've got MFA set up, you're doing security audits to find any weaknesses, that kind of stuff. So like you said, good to get it out there for folks that are using these devices so that they can make sure they're well protected against this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the cool news is if you already had those things going on, then you're gravy. Like there was no sweat on said brows. You went, yeah, what else you got? Good for you with your new exploit. I got all the other, because this is why we harp on the idea of a layered defense, right? Defense in depth is if SonicWall VPN was your one point of failure, well, guess what? It just failed. But if you had other things like making sure you're patching in a timely and regulated manner, as well as in using things like MFA and other different security controls, then you already had other mitigations in place and you didn't have to worry about this SysPat, right? Not that you didn't have to take a look and make sure that everything was still kosher, but that lets you breathe. You have breathing room because you were doing good security.
Right, exactly. Being proactive as opposed to having to be reactive when stuff like this happens. What is the phrase? An ounce of prevention
worth a pound of cure.
There you go. There you go. See, I was never good with measurements. But yeah, good point. If you've been doing this stuff already, then hopefully there's not too much for you to worry about, but it's still always good to double check. Now, I know we mentioned earlier, we talked a little bit about AI and said, oh, we could do a whole hour talking about that. So I know we said we weren't going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it a little bit. There's been some user outcry because Slack is scraping customer data for AI model training. And, I can kind of understand that, oh, we're just trying to make sure that it's smarter and that it's the best that it can be and whatever. But I wouldn't love the idea of a company scraping my data. I say wouldn't. Like, companies don't know everything about me already. But I would not love the idea of a company being like, oh yeah, we're just scraping your data to train our AI. That would make me a little uncomfy. That would make me a little uneasy. That's just me.
So I'm not too upset with that. And I don't think that's why the Slack community is so upset with this. necessarily. I mean, I'm sure there are those that are, but I think the vast majority of people are upset because this was done without their knowledge, really, right? I'm sure there was some caveat or thing that they signed, a EULA or something that said we can do X, Y, and Z, and we are. But the fact that this wasn't very obvious because you didn't have to opt into it. It just happened. They just do it. And if you don't want to do it, it's kind of a convoluted process to opt out. You have to actually send an email to a specific email address that says, I want to opt out. There's no like go into the settings, opt out of AI training, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't exist. You have to format this email, send it to the specific email address. And then after they read it and do it, then you're opted out. And I think that's what's causing the outcry. At least that's what I'm reading from this article, is that it's most people don't really care. They like having, when they, tell you what emojis you should be using based off of the text you just used, or what GIF would be more funny. I mean, that's great. I personally do not require an AI to tell me, what's funny. My mom says I'm funny, so everything I do is obviously hysterical. So I'm happy to opt out of all that stuff. It doesn't bother me. I'm the kind of person that would say, I don't want any of that stuff regardless, right? I'd kind of be in your camp with this, where I just don't want you doing it. And if I want you doing it, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. They just started doing it. And when people found out, and especially when they found out about the opting out idea was kind of difficult, that's when the outcry started.
This reminds me a little bit of the whole thing that happened with Roku several months ago, where they had like new terms and conditions, and they didn't allow you to be like, well, no, I want to read further, or hey, I'm not really interested in this, I want to opt out, whatever the case may be. You had to like write them a letter and then include the name of every person in your household that was opting out. It was a real pain. And I'm sure that that's intentional so that people are just like, screw it, I'm not going to bother with it. Now, in this case, you don't have to write a physical letter, but like you said, it's not as simple as just going to your settings and opting out, or going to your profile and opting out. You do have to go out of your way to email them and give them your workspace or organization URL. And that is a pain, and people don't necessarily think to do that. And so, yeah, it's a little
inertia sets right in, and people go, well, it's already been doing it. And now that said, I will give credit to the Slack community. Apparently they have in droves been opting out of this. And that's what prompted the headline, was the fact that Slack was kind of like, well, what's the problem here? The problem is, jerk, you're making, and people overcame the inertia of, yeah, it's kind of a pain. I'm not worried about it. Let me go ahead. They saw that this was A, it wasn't right that they did it that way. And B, maybe they're learning things about you that you don't want them to learn. Now they go into, handle it mode, where the PR person or whatever says, well, you can tell it what to train off of and whatnot. You can exclude things, you can add things, you can kind of curate this. Well, who's got that kind of time? Who wants to sit around taking their time to train your AI, or to make it very specific to where, if I am allowing you to train your AI, you're doing it on things that I find unobjectionable.
Right.
It's just way too much. It's just simple. Give me an opt-in. Let me know what I'm opting into. Give me the ability to easily opt in or out what I do and do not want, and then call it a day. That's how they should have done it. If they'd have done it that way, we wouldn't be talking about it.
And of course, like you said, in response, they're covering themselves, right? Which, of course they are. And they are saying, we're not building these models in such a way they're not going to learn or memorize or be able to reproduce your data. They're not going to learn these things about you. I don't know that I 100% believe that. But
why should I trust you?
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, I doubt that that's going to, it's not like they're going to be like, oh, we'll just stop doing it. We'll stop. But I wonder if in response to this backlash, they'll be like, hey, you know what? You're right. It's kind of a pain to have to go out of your way to email us and format it a certain way and all that. We'll add just a button to opt out, or an option to go to your settings and opt out. I wonder if they'll change their design to allow for that. Who knows?
Here's hoping.
Yeah, one can hope, one can dream. So
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I don't have a whole lot of hope for corporations to take people's wants and needs into account. We have a couple of we're going to take a break here in just a second, but we have a couple of articles we wanted to jump into really quick concerning some critical flaws and bugs that have come up recently. There's a critical flaw in an AI Python package that can lead to system and data compromise. Not the first time we've talked about an issue relating to Python in the last few weeks. Python seems to be kind of a buzzword here on the show in the last few months. But this is a critical vulnerability that was discovered used by AI application developers, this package usually is, that can allow arbitrary code execution, putting systems and data at risk. It's been dubbed llama drama. I just think that's so fun that they gave it that name.
My kids, we read the Llama Llama Red Pajama. You ever read that book? Yeah, I think of that every time I see this article. It's Llama Llama Red Pajama.
You should incorporate that into your like nightly bedtime stories and stuff. Teach them a little bit.
We'll start talking about Python and Jinja templates.
Yeah, teach them. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was the other fun term that was in there. It's related to the Jinja 2 template rendering Python tool, so used for generating HTML. So I guess if it is used by AI application developers and it allows arbitrary code execution, reading this, I'm sure that there's implications of things that could go wrong if somebody's affected by this. What exactly, they highlight a couple of times that it's used by AI developers and that's a big deal. What is it about that makes this a big deal? Why is it so important? Well, it's used by AI developers. That could be a problem.
It turns into a supply chain attack at that point, right? So if you're running the Llama CPP Python 0272 release, then you are opening yourself up to template injections in Jinja, right? So this thing will allow for arbitrary code execution. And if you say, okay, what's the big deal with these AI? Think of websites like, and I think they call out Hugging Face specifically. You got the Hugging Face community. If you've never been to Hugging Face, it's a really interesting website that has a lot of AI tools that you can have access to through the Hugging Face website. It's really interesting, and you might become aware of some AI capabilities that you were unaware of before. So really, really interested. I encourage you to check it out. But if you then incorporate that tool into your workflow and it has this problem underneath the hood, now you've built this problem in underneath the hood. And anybody that knows that that exists just starts looking for it. And once they find it, now they have access to you through them. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
The whole supply chain attack is the problem here. Now, I'm pretty sure that this has been patched already, and our patch has been released. That was the version I was talking about. 0272 is the patch. Is the patched release. So if you don't have that, go grab that, get that installed. If you're an AI developer, make sure that your tools are using that. Llama CPP is C++, so basically it kind of gives Python access to C++ or the C engine underneath the hood, so you can do some C stuff, giving you performance, which is what you're looking for when it comes to your applications, right? You want good performance. C and C++ has long been known for having it being very performance, and that's why it's still around for as long as it has been. But if you're using those Jinja templates, I know that you're using this Llama CPP Python thing under the hood. Well, then I can bake into a Jinja template something nefarious that would then give me code execution, giving me access to your system, and we're down the road of no land.
Okay, I got you. It does say that the vulnerability has been patched, so that is good news. I did try to look at, it says it's CVE 2024-34359, and I looked it up, and there's no score for it just yet. It did say critical, so I'm curious to see what rating they end up giving this.
Look in the different versions, because that was CVSS 4.0.
So yeah, that's 4.0. When I go to 3 and
the other side,
okay, here we go. Base score 9.6 critical. So
yeah,
oh boy, isn't that fun? I mean, it's not a perfect 10, but it's pretty close.
No,
it's up there.
No.
It's up there.
I'm not going to even hear about it if it's not a 10.0.
I've been so desensitized.
Apparently a non-issue.
When it's like, oh, it's a score of 7. That's not that bad. It's still pretty bad. So, I mean, no vulnerability is good. But like you said, in this case, there is a patch available. So as long as you're running the updated version, should be good to go. But good to keep in mind. That's also not the only critical flaw / bug that we've got on the table this week. This next article comes to us from Dark Reading. There's been a critical bug that allows denial of service, RCE, data leaks in all major cloud platforms. That's no big deal. Just all major cloud platforms. Really nothing to worry about. I also love that there's a picture of Paul Bunyan here. Is that who that is? Is
It
that Paul
does look
Bunyan?
like Paul Bunyan. Yeah.
That's I wonder what the choice was for that. Anyway, so
That's
no big
because
deal.
this is called the linguistic lumberjack. That is the name of the attack or
Oh, okay.
vulnerability.
Okay, I guess I
Yeah.
forget he was a lumberjack, right? Okay.
Yes.
Well, this is a little scary. All major cloud platforms affected by this, including AWS, Microsoft, Google Cloud. Little bit scary, and it's one of the more popular pieces of software that's affected. The service called FluentBit has more than 3 billion downloads as of 2022.
Yeah, 3 billion with a
3
B.
billion. Mm-hmm.
Billion. And it says it has 10 million or so deployments per day.
Yeah. So growing rapidly or being used more and more
Yeah.
every day.
This is no small fry. And
Yeah.
which again goes back to the problem is if all these major cloud providers and other things are using FluentBit and it has this issue which allows an attacker to um, denial of service an environment or to leak sensitive information to themselves and maybe even get code execution, like that's a problem with 3 billion downloads. So they realized they were looking. I think that was it Talos or who was it that was researching this?
It
Remember
was
Tenable?
tenable.
Tenable was doing it, right? So Tenable was looking at another security issue in an unnamed cloud provider, and they realized that their FluentBit instance was able to access information from another tenant, maybe even the cloud provider themselves, because so many people use this and the API was allowing it wasn't being very discriminatory when it came to accessing things. It just went, are you FluentBit? Are you accessing the right endpoint? You did it with the right API call. I don't care who you are. Here's stuff.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Or if you give it the right string of information or the type of data, you could cause it to crash the service. Crashing a person's service is called the denial of service because it's not working at that point. No one can access said service, and that is a problem for most people. So this is a really bad one because of how many people use this. I want to give a shout out real quick to Andrew. I think his last name is Despres, because he's the one that kind of he reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, check this article out. It's super crazy." I said, "Absolutely, that is crazy. We definitely need to talk about this because chances are, if you are using a cloud provider, they are using this software, and you might be exposed." So I'm I'm pretty sure there is a patch available and it has been fixed because
Mhm.
that's why they're responsibly disclosing this. So they let FluentBit know about the problem, FluentBit fixed the problem, and now they can disclose what the problem is without worrying so much about people abusing the vulnerability.
Right, exactly. There is a fix. It was applied to the project's main branch on GitHub as of May 15th, so just a couple days ago, just a few days ago. But it was reported on April 30th, so they worked on it and made sure there was a fix available. But, of course, encouraging organizations that have FluentBit deployed in some way in their own infrastructure to update as soon as possible so that they don't have to worry about this issue. I did look up I like seeing the score. I know it should be enough for me to be like, it's a critical flaw, fix it. But I like to see the score. This one had a base score of 9.8, so definitely a critical one. And there is a fix. So that's good news. But it's always fun to talk about the critical bugs and the havoc that they wreak.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, it's just crazy to see. I mean, this is what fascinates me about cybersecurity and why, even though I got a busted wing, I'm still here talking about it because it's super fun. Is, man, you're looking for one thing, you think there's an issue with one area, and you end up stumbling across another. It's these threads that you get to pull at and find and see and how they work. Obviously, we love the fact that we can find them and fix them before an attacker could, and that's kind of the fun of the game. I think that's why a lot of people are really, is if you like doing puzzles, if you like solving mysteries, you got that kind of thing in your brain, man, this is definitely a fun job. You can go out and find something like this, which affects dang near the world, and be able to say, yeah, I was a part of that. That's really cool.
It is. It's like solving a puzzle in both directions, whether you are an ethical hacker or red teamer, and you're looking for flaws and, okay, here's this system. How can I break it? What can I do to get in there? That's like you're kind of trying to solve a puzzle and solve a problem and then fixing that issue. Okay, we've seen that there's a problem. How do we patch this? How do we make sure that this doesn't happen again and that people can't exploit this? So it is pretty cool. That's kind of what appeals to me about it. Even just learning about it is it's neat to see how things come together like that. And it is like solving a puzzle. But like you said, there's a fix. If you are using FluentBit in your environment in some way, might want to go ahead and make sure you're updated and you've got that patched. We are going to take a quick break in just a second and give Daniel's voice and his busted wing a couple seconds to recover and rest. But we are nowhere near done. So we'll be right back with more here on Technado. Tired of trying to schedule your team's time around in-person learning? Isn't it a bummer to spend thousands of dollars on travel for professional development? What if we said you can save money and time and still provide your team with the best training possible? The answer to your woes is live online training from ACI Learning. With live online training, we provide our top in-person courses in private, online, instructor-led formats. You get to provide professional development in a manner that fits today's expectations. Entertaining, convenient, and effective. Our exam-aligned courses inspire the full potential of your team. Visit virtual instructor-led training at ACI Learning for more info. Welcome back, and thanks so much for sticking with us through that break. Really quick, Daniel had mentioned that one of the previous articles that we went over was something that was sent to us on LinkedIn. Somebody posted about it on LinkedIn, and we really appreciated that because it was brought it to our attention. So if you ever see something like that and you're like, I want them to talk about this on Technado, feel free. We're both on LinkedIn. Tag us, let us know. We're always looking for stuff like that. Yeah, leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. We always love hearing from you guys in any respect, and we love hearing what you guys want to hear covered. So we did appreciate that contribution and just wanted to bring that up. Feel free, tag us in some stuff. But
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We are in agreement there. We've got a couple more articles we want to run through in this episode. This is part of one of my favorite segments, Who Got Pwned?
Looks like you're about to get pwned.
Fatality.
Yeah!
Who'd get pwned? Oh, the age-old question. Well, in this case, this article comes to us from the Register. Nissan InfoSec is in the spotlight again after a breach affecting more than 50,000 U.S. employees. So this is another data loss, again, being the key word. But this time, it involved the theft of personal information belonging to more than 50,000 of their employees. And as you can probably guess, Nissan employees are not too happy about this. They did disclose it, but this breach occurred back in November, and the disclosure was pretty recent. So kind of scary.
Yeah, that's interesting that it was all the way back in November, and they're just now letting us know that was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently this did target only, this was the Nissan in America version. So a version, like there's, well, we have the European version of Nissans. We also have the American version of said Nissan, which is probably not too far from the truth, actually. But it was the Nissan Corporation in America that was breached. Now, that said, there was also like an Asian Pacific, in that area, Nissan also suffered a breach. I don't remember when it was, and they're not too sure that these aren't related, but they can't say at this time that it was. I don't think they have the information to say, oh yeah, this was absolutely a coordinated effort to breach the Nissan homeworld and abscond with all of its information. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you bought a Nissan within the the time where you were an employee, not bought one, but if you were an employee for Nissan, that was an interesting thing because if I'm reading right, and Sophia, you go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that they got 50,000 records. That's what they say is the breach size was 50,000 different records.
Right.
But Nissan only has 21 or so thousand employees as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this must include records from previous employees as well.
Yes, presumably past and present, which is, I know there's certain rules about like how you have to retain certain data and stuff like that. But in this case, that seems like a lot of data to hold on to. Because even at most, if 21,000 of those records are current employees, that's still over half of those records that are not current employees, presumably. So that's a little concerning to me. Maybe there's something that I don't know about. No, they have to hold on to that information and they're required to, or it's important that they do. I don't work for Nissan.
It's quite possible that it's just some regulatory or legal compliance where they are holding on to records for X amount of time. If they ever created a policy that said we must maintain records for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or however long, then they have to hold themselves to that. And if a lawyer ever showed up and said, show me your policy, and the policy says 5 years, and they can't show records from 5 years ago, then they're legally, they might be in trouble. So that could depend. There might be regulatory compliance that says you must maintain employee records for X amount of time. I'm not 100% sure on that. I've never worked in the automotive industries. Fun fact. Have I not? Right? Yeah. No, I've had a lot of jobs, so I had to think about it for a second.
Well,
That said, if you're a Nissan employee, did they say what, I didn't get that far in the article as far as they say what kind of access they actually had.
so they don't think, and I mean, it always seems like this is the case. No, 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 it's you should be fine. But Nissan does not think that this employee data was the target. It's just that it was kind of a casualty of this, that they were able to access this.
Gotcha.
They think that it was just business information that they were looking for. And like I said, this breach occurred in November, and it wasn't until February they realized, there's been some employee data that's been exposed as a result of this. And it wasn't just like names and emails and physical addresses, because apparently that's not sensitive information, but it was social security numbers that was part of this. So that was kind of the big thing that was like, okay, we got to let people know. Just so you know, we don't think that this was the criminal target or that it's been misused yet, but that information.
Yeah, I love that. It does say in parentheses, yet.
Yeah.
Because it's coming. Because it will happen. They will misuse this information. And then I do love it says that since the attack, NNA, so Nissan North America, has taken several steps to strengthen the security environment, including an enterprise-wide password reset. Okay, that's going to be fun, but not too bad of a lift, and a good idea at this point in time. Implementation of carbon black monitoring on all compatible systems. Were you not monitoring systems before? Like, right? Or were you just using a different vendor and that vendor sucks, and so you went with carbon black? And I always love reading what they're doing to kind of walk this back or fix the problem. So they're implementing carbon black monitoring on all compatible systems. They're doing vulnerability scans and other actions to address unauthorized access. This kind of goes back to if you've ever been in the security industry for even a modicum of time or talk to people that have been, a lot of them will tell you, especially when it comes to governance and compliance, regulation, that the people that are in charge of many corporations, not all of them, but many of them, feel like if I do the thing, if I go through SOC 2 compliance, if I go through ISO 27001, if I am following PCI DSS or HIPAA or whatever industry I'm involved in with whatever regulatory thing, or those more generalized ones like SOC 2 or 27001, if I do that, we're secure, right? We ran a vulnerability scan. Cool. Yeah, but what'd you do with that? Well, we ran the vulnerability scan and I checked the box. Therefore, I'm secure. Unfortunately, that has long been an issue with the people that make the decisions on where the money goes and how much effort and time get put into their cybersecurity posture and maturity. And usually after a breach like this, that's when they turn the spigot on and go, oh, apparently this is important. It's like, did you really need a breach to tell you that? You just pick up the newspaper for 5 seconds. We do articles every week on Technado that show you that this is an important thing, that there is security flaws that you have not found yet. And if you are not actively trying to hunt them down, fix them, then you are going to get breached. It's just not a matter of if, but when. So I just don't understand the mindset of that, other than I get it. They think that they can save money. It's never going to save you. You're going to get breached. It's going to happen. So just go ahead and spend the time, spend the money, get the people you need, because it's a whole lot easier to stop a breach and spend the money on stopping it than it is to try to like backtrack from it. At least that would be my guess.
It does seem like, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it's kind of a bare minimum mentality where it's like, well, as long as we're in compliance, we're good. And we're meeting the stand. We, like you said, we ran the vulnerability scan. We're good. And it's like, well, compliance doesn't equal security. It's great to be in compliance, and maybe in some cases it does help and it goes a long way, but it's not the whole. That's not the end of the line, security wise.
Yeah, it does seem like it's getting better. Like in my experience, I think that problem maybe about 5 years ago started becoming something that people were aware of and were talking about it more, and awareness is starting to kind of help fix the issue, but obviously we're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet. But we've got, cybersecurity is evolving every day. Hopefully we get there eventually.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention is there's not a whole lot of detail yet about this attack. Like, this is how they got into the system and this is how they did this. Just that they deliberately shut down certain systems, and this criminal threat actor did demand a ransom, as they seemingly always do. I feel like that's kind of just...
They didn't do it for the fun of it, that's for sure.
Right. You just assume at this point they're looking for money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely... There were some social security numbers exposed in conjunction with like other personal identifiable information. You mentioned the Oceania division that was attacked as well. They don't have any information on whether these two are linked yet or whether it's just a coincidence. This was relatively recent, so there may be more information that comes out about this in the next couple of weeks, and maybe we'll talk about it again on Technado. Who knows? But wanted to touch on that. Poor Nissan. They're dealing with a whole bunch of crap right now.
Yeah.
We do have some happy news though, almost entirely happy news. There's some new Windows 11 features that we get to talk about that strengthen security to address that evolving cyber threat landscape that we talked about. So this is good news that there are new features that are taking security into account and prioritizing security. We love to see that. We don't always see that. Security sometimes is an afterthought, so it's nice to see it coming first in this case.
Absolutely. This article, by the way, is chock full of new security features that we could have made a special Technado. Right, a very special episode. We'll take that. You're probably too young to remember those. So sitcoms and TV shows used to do a very special episode where they would address some social issue or, that kind of thing, a kind of a PSA episode. And we could have made a PSA episode on this specific thing because Microsoft is they broke the brakes off of security, and they're like, we are I think they call it the Security First Initiative, where they're saying, if it doesn't affect cybersecurity, we're not really worried about it right now. All we care about right now is cybersecurity and making sure that the Windows 11 experience is the most safe and secure experience that our end users can have. And bravo, right? If I had a hat on, I would tip it to them. If I could clap right now, I would. I can't because it's really, really hard to move my arm. That said, let's get into some of the things that they have done to try to increase the security in your Windows operating system. So, they have issued a new class of PCs called Copilot Plus. That's interesting. So obviously Copilot is their AI. They are integrating Copilot into the Windows operating system to give you a more robust and better experience. So that's kind of cool, kind of baked in AI into the operating system instead of being an afterthought or a bolt-on. Okay, so really cool there. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of what they are trying to do. Let's see. They talk about introducing the secured core PC to help secure the chip to the cloud, not from the cloud, chip to the cloud, and that critical layer of computing. So really interesting is they have this, I think it's called Pluton, is kind of their version of a TPM. It's supposed to be the $6 million TPM, the bigger, better, stronger, faster TPM. Gives you all the same features that you've grown to know and love from TPMs, but is baked in and built by Microsoft into their devices, and is more robust, is more featureful, allows for better, tighter security measures. So that's going to be cool. That's going to be so it's called the Secure Future Initiative, not Security First. So Secure Future Initiative, the SFI, had the acronym correctly, just not the right reliance. Also, they have expanded their capabilities when it comes to FIDO and using passkeys. They've incorporated more and better Windows Hello features. So really cool when it comes to that. They're also doing a couple of other things. So we've talked a bit about the hardware. Where is the... Oh, there was about Pluton. There's this whole thing about virtualization. So I think they called it VBS. So virtualize something security. So basically what they're doing is they're creating security enclaves using virtualization. So they'll grab a stack of memory, put it in a virtualized area, and you only have access to that. So let's say you have something like a heap overflow that you discovered. The idea is that that's cool. You found that heap overflow, but you can't get outside of the memory portion that has been allocated for that application. It doesn't then reach into the operating system and allow it to do certain things. It's kind of protected off.
Mm.
So very, very cool stuff that they're doing there. They're also getting rid of NTLM. That is going by the wayside. They have pushed more toward LSA, which is the Local Security Authority protection. So that's really good. I think they're pushing more for Kerberos as well, but it does say the NT LAN manager is being deprecated. Deprecating NTLM has been a huge ask from our security community, as it will strengthen user authentication, and deprecation is planned in the second half of 2024. Here's the VBS thing: advanced key protection using VBS. Now available in public preview for Windows insiders. This feature helps offer higher security bar than software isolation with stronger performance. So kind of giving you better performance with the software kind of isolation thing baked in as well. Very, very cool stuff. Lots of protections. Smart app control, trusted signing. If it's not a signed app, it's not trusted. It will not run, which begs the question on, how do I develop? I guess I got to get a signing key, right? You have to have a signing key, even if you want to write a Hello World app. You're going to have to sign it. They also have some Win32 app isolation features that they're pushing out. They're making admin users more secure, kind of doing a just-in-time type of administration where you don't run as an administrator unless you absolutely need to at that point in time, and then you only run as an administrator at that point in time. Otherwise, even if you're logged in as an administrator, you're not running with administrative capabilities until you absolutely need to. Then it does the thing and then drops you back down. Let's see here. VBS enclaves. So that was really, really cool stuff. Definitely check that out. Anything else? Windows protected print. That's right. Because things like the print spooler needs access to the hardware in the system. We think of things like a print nightmare, anything that affected the spooler system that gave us remote code execution to NT Authority. That's meant to, they're trying to protect that a little bit more. They're adding TLS server authentication. So lots of stuff. I think zero trust DNS. Like I said, there is so much that they are adding security wise. Windows is going to be a real titan when it comes to security, I think. Now, does that mean that hackers aren't going to find ways around these things? Absolutely not. Right? Where there's a what did the dude say there on Jurassic Park? Life finds a way.
Yes.
Right? Life finds a way. So lots of good stuff going on. So definitely check it out. Be interested in, especially if you're a Windows user, this is going to be all good news for you.
Now, one of the things it's mentioned a couple times, the use of AI to improve security, which is great. But one of the new features in Windows 11 that's not necessarily a security feature, it's just a new feature, is something called Windows 11 Recall. And it's not in the list of these security features because it's not security focused, but I wanted to touch on it because I think it does present a little bit of a security concern, or at least a privacy concern. Basically, it's like a photographic memory of your PC. It takes little screenshots or snippets of everything that you do, everything you search, every interaction you have on your PC. So, for instance, if you're using it to message your grandma and you ask this I think it's Copilot, hey, what did I say to grandma? What happened to my conversation? It'll pull up every single screenshot or every single instance where you talk to your grandma. If you say, hey, I was looking for some red shoes the other day. Could you remind me where I was? It takes pictures of everything. So useful if you're trying to go back and figure out what web page was I on? What was I looking at? Even more so than like a web history, because it is actual images of everything you do, even outside your browser. I think, though, I would not love if my computer was taking pictures of everything that I did on my image. It says they stay locally on your PC. They are yours. You can delete individual snapshots. You can adjust ranges of time, delete ranges of time, or you can pause this tool, this capability at any time. Still, though, I don't love it. They're saying no data will be sent to their servers, but one of the concerns that comes up is how this recorded data is going to be locally secured on Windows devices. So if my computer was doing this and a threat actor gained access to my device, would they be able to get to the data or send it to their own computers? I don't know. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but this kind of, to me, gives me like an icky feeling. What are your thoughts on this?
Hey, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not following you.
Exactly.
Right? That is, this is kind of like the anti-Tails, right? This is the anti-Hunix, where they retain nothing. And as soon as you reboot the computer, everything you ever did in those systems is deleted and erased. It's ephemeral. It's gone. Why are you like, I'm with you on this. I do not like the idea that my computer is basically recording everything that I do. And yeah, you can kind of like blow sunshine up my skirt by saying, well, you can turn this and that off. To me, it's kind of like the whole Slack thing. Hey, does this opt in without asking, or you just opted in by installing Windows and using Windows? And then I've got to go opt out of it. And how difficult is that process? I can see inertia, and then people will get reliant on it, where
Mm.
people are like, I'm going to just outsource my memory to the AI recording feature of Windows 11 and go, hey, what were those red shoes I was looking at the other day? And yes, I understand my browser does that as well, but you got to turn that off. And if you want to be secure, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have the ability to do this. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do this. I'm just saying that for me, that would not be a feature that I would necessarily find useful for myself. I have a good enough memory that I'll remember it in some way, shape, or form. And if I don't, it wasn't meant to be. I'm not going to cry over it. If it was important, I probably bookmarked it or did whatever so that I would remember it, because I realized this is an important thing. I'm not going to just keep relying. Like I find incorporating that level of AI a little, I'm not ready for commitment with it quite yet, to be honest with you. It seems like you're not either.
No.
It just doesn't, there's something tastes bad about it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's just a gut feeling. It's like, I can't really give you a specific reason why. Because I think a lot of times the thing that comes up is like, well, if you have nothing to hide, then what's the problem? It's like, okay, but I don't have anything to hide, but that doesn't
That's the
mean
worst
that,
anti-privacy
right.
Argument I've ever heard, right?
That doesn't mean I just want you looking at my stuff. Like okay,
Right.
no, I have nothing to hide, but I'm not going to leave my door unlocked. Like it gives me a weird feeling. And because it records everything you do on your PC, a couple of the examples that are given that like things that you could use this for, it makes it really easy to return to specific emails in Outlook or find the right chat in Teams. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm
Does it
missing
not
something.
already do that?
Right. I already have tools to do that. Who is asking for this? If I want to find a chat in Teams and I'm like, oh, we were talking about, somebody's birthday. All I do is type in birthday in Teams and it'll pull up all the chats where I talked about a birthday. I scroll for a minute. I find it. I don't know that this is really giving me any new capabilities. Maybe I can do it like 2% faster.
Well,
I just wonder who is asking for this.
The fact of the matter is that's done in Teams. If you're recording conversations in Teams, I mean, that's kind of the purpose of Teams.
Yeah.
If I opt into using Teams for my enterprise use case, I get that. That's a
Right.
tool that is a part of my business and that I'm using for businesses. I need to be able to access it. You're talking about recording everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just Teams. Everything. And it's all done in a single location. The one ring to rule them all is controlling all this. And that's where I'm like, and yeah, like you say, you can turn it off. It's just easier to use Linux. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I probably won't use Linux, but that is a good point.
Yeah.
And this is something that to use Recall, it's a new feature on Windows 11. You need a Copilot Plus PC that has like very specific requirements. So it's not something that I'll personally have on my computer. And so it's not something that I luckily really have to worry about. But just the idea that it exists gives me a little bit of an icky feeling. But I mean, you can opt out of it. You can turn it off. You can pause it. And that's good, at least. Bare minimum, I guess. But since we were talking about some of the Windows 11 features, I wanted to bring that up because, I don't know, it gave me a little bit of a weird feeling. We do have a couple other articles we want to jump through before we end this episode. So this next one comes to us from CSO Online. Siemens and other product vendors are patching critical ICS product vulnerabilities. Some of these flaws outlined could result in remote code execution on industrial control systems. Industrial control systems, correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, if somebody were to gain access and be able to have RCE on these, the implications of that would be pretty huge, right?
Yeah, I got 2 words for you. Colonial pipeline. Colonial pipeline. You remember that little action? That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Good times were had by all. It actually was a very interesting case, I'm being honest with you. But it just goes to show you that the more we connect our critical infrastructure, the more exposed we become. And here we are staring down the barrel of a list of 10.0 CVEs, right? Or CVSS, I'm sorry, 10.0 CVSS scores. So that seems to be a problem, right? Because you got to remember, and this is true for IT, it's now true for OT. As we move things into a connected era where things are being more connected than less connected, they were never built with security in mind. Excuse me. So we're finding security issues. Now, the good news is we're finding them. We like that, but they are there. And there's probably others that haven't been found. And we should be worried about that.
Yeah, I think, like you said, because security is not usually the first thing that was in mind when these things were being designed. I mean, I guess that makes sense because at the time, maybe we weren't as aware of some of the issues that might come up. But these are like the last systems that I would want an attacker to gain access to, or a bad actor to gain access to. So it's an unfortunate irony that the one system that would have the biggest impact if something went wrong and a bad actor got their hands on it is the one system that's probably the least protected. But like you said, in this list, I think it was 4 of them had CVSS scores between 9 and 10, another 3 between 7 and 9, and then the rest were medium and lower severity issues. But of the 15 advisories that were released, 11 of those advisories covered vulnerabilities specifically in the Siemens product. So it looks like they are disproportionately affected by these advisories, or of all the advisories, they're the ones that have the most to worry about.
Well, Siemens kind of has the market share
Yeah.
on like PLCs and ICS devices. So it does make sense that we would see a lot more from Siemens as far as security issues go, just because there's more of them. That said, though, kind of what you're saying is totally true. And I agree with you as far as these are high impact things, and we need to focus more security into the ICS and SCADA space and the OT space overall than we have in the past. And we really need to kind of get ahead of this. Hopefully this is indicative of that effort being done because of how many of these have been responsibly disclosed in this article, that there's a lot of new security researchers that are out there treading that ground, blazing the path for people to come behind them and continue that work. I'd love to see more people. I'd love to see more training. It's hard to find training on ICS and SCADA. Not that it's not there, it is, but most people just don't think of it because it's not as ubiquitous as just regular IT is in general. But it's a really good niche, and if you're looking to build a niche in cybersecurity, you could do a whole lot worse than OT, ICS, and SCADA systems.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an untapped market, but a market that certainly it could use some people. It's not like it's overly saturated or anything. I think they're always looking for folks that are good at that stuff. Of these vulnerabilities, of these weaknesses, all of them have been either patched or, I believe in the case of at least one of them, the vulnerability affected like older versions. So there are new versions out that are not affected by it. So as long as you're running those newer versions, or as long as those newer versions are being used, I guess, we should be good. But for all the other, do what?
Patch now.
Right, exactly. Everything else, it looks like.
Moral of the story: patch now.
Patch now. Patch now. Keep your stuff updated. And I don't think that they would be releasing this stuff if there weren't patches available, I would think.
Yeah.
So everything, it looks like, has some kind of a patch or fix available. Even these higher rating ones, a couple of them had the highest possible score of 10. So exciting, but not in a good way. But definitely a good one to cover because, like you said, these are pretty big names, and those industrial control systems are nothing to play around with. We have a couple more stories. These are a little more fun, I thought. I mean, not fun in that there's like cyber attacks going on, but fun in the topics at hand. So this first one, Bleeping Computer, is the supplier of this article. American Radio Relay League cyber attack takes logbook of the world offline. Now, a lot of this might look unfamiliar. I know everybody that I talk to says, like, radio's a dying industry. They're probably right, but I like to dream. Now, in this case, the American Radio Relay League is, it's used by, like, amateur radio enthusiasts. So they use these 3-letter codes to indicate, it's like shorthand, to indicate that they can communicate with somebody, and if their signal's being received, there's another shorthand code that they'll send back that says, hey, I'm acknowledging the receipt of that message. So, they communicate, they talk back and forth, and they use something called the Logbook of the World. It's an online database, so it allows these enthusiasts to submit their logs or electronic logs of any successful contacts and confirmations they have between other users. So it's something fun that they do. If you're a hobbyist or if you're interested in radio in this way, this is something that you're probably using. The issue here is that there was a cyber attack. Let me see if I can find it. It's up here towards the top. The American Radio Relay League is warning that it suffered a cyber attack that disrupted its IT systems and its online operations, so email, and the logbook of the world. So they're calling it a pretty serious incident. They had access to their network, disrupted their network and systems, and various online services. So unfortunately for the ARRL, this probably is impacting their ability to use the logbook of the world and to communicate with others. At the very least, it's inconvenient, and at the most, it's a security concern. Daniel, do you even listen to the radio? Like, are you interested in radio at all, Daniel? As that's not really a topic of interest for you?
Well, so when they say radio, they're talking about like ham radio, right? Not
Right.
not like FM. Welcome to Gold.
No, yeah.
No.
It's not like, 1071, Lisa and Timmy in the morning. No, not like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, gotcha. So it is interesting to me. I like anything that's technological in nature. So this would definitely, I've always kind of wanted to get into ham radio. I just never have pulled the trigger on it. It seems like a lot of fun to be able to kind of pick up your microphone and, hey there, big goat, this is Crawdad. I'm over here in Florida. Where are you at? And then speak to someone in Australia or Germany or whatever the case is, and kind of have that network of people where you actually speak to them and not just through some sort of Discord server or something to that effect. So I think that's a really cool thing. Technology has obviously been around for quite some time. It might come in handy when the apocalypse happens. So probably a good idea to go out there and grab you one of these things and get at least familiar with the technology. And at that point, it doesn't matter that the logbook of the world has been breached, because we're fighting the machines at that point. And if anything would bring humanity together, it's the robot apocalypse, right?
Yeah, the robocalypse, if you will.
The robocalypse.
The
I like that.
robocalypse, yeah. Well, in this case, like I said, it was more of a disruption to their systems and this logbook. So the ARRL has allayed concerns and said, hey, you don't have to worry about your data security. We don't store credit card information. We don't collect social security numbers. You don't have to worry about it. But their database has some personal information, things like names and addresses and call signs. And you do have to have an email address to become a member of this organization. So we can kind of presume that they probably are also storing email addresses, even though that's not stated. But other than that, as far as the attack goes, we don't know yet if it was like a ransomware attack or some other kind of cybersecurity incident. Maybe more information will come out on that. But I just saw that it was the American Radio Relay League that was affected. And I was like, I don't know that I would think to target that if I was an attacker. But I don't know. I guess if you find a way in, doesn't really matter what organization you're targeting. Maybe somebody just wanted to see if they could do it. But thought it was interesting. We don't see things about radio that often.
On a lighter note, I will ask those that are listening or viewing in the comment section, if you are into ham radio, what would be a good starter? Where would I begin this journey if I were to go down the road? What would be something good? Give me an Amazon link or something like that. Throw that down there in the comment section and let me know what would be a good one to get started with.
Yeah. When we end up in like a Last of Us situation, you'll have a radio and you'll know what to do with it. So
I got to get ready, man. It's coming.
Yeah, you got to be prepared. You're going to start building your bunker, storing canned food.
Listen,
we'll be set.
If all the movies I've been watching from the 80s are true, and I'm sure they are, this is what will happen. There will be some sort of nuclear holocaust, which will lead us to both mutants and, these post-apocalyptic camps where we need to communicate with each other. And ham radio is going to be the only game in town at that point.
It's only a matter of time. Predictive programming. Look it up.
That's it.
It's true. It's literally so true. We have a couple more to go into here that are it's a little different than our usual subject matter. In this case, as a former college student myself, fairly recently, I thought this was interesting. A couple students found a security bug that could let millions do free laundry. Now, for a college student, if you're having to use the laundromat or if you've got to pay to do your laundry, I don't know. This could make a difference. This could add up for you. So there was a vulnerability that some Santa Cruz students in the University of California found in internet-connected washing machines that were being used like for commercial use that would allow folks to do laundry without asking for a payment. You could remotely command work without payment and update a laundry account to show that it had millions of dollars in it. So it looks like you're paying for it, but you're not. Ethically, this is bad. But I could see a college student being like, I don't mind if they never fix this. If you know
this
how to
is
take
the generation that shares their Netflix accounts with their friends. They don't pay for anything.
Right.
They feel like it's a basic human right to be able to steal laundry services.
We have had some conversations about that in the office because, there's some folks that are like, I'm just using my sister's account, my parents' account. Daniel has some opinions on that. He's got opinions.
It's not an opinion. Last time I checked, stealing is stealing. If
That's
you
true.
do not pay for something, that is a pay for service, you are stealing it.
That is true.
Whether or not Netflix is a basic human right, that's another argument to have. Definitely don't think that that's the case.
Yeah.
But I digress. Ultimately, the security issue that surrounds these washing machines was found in the API. So, welcome to the connected world, ladies and gentlemen. Is that when your washing machine has an API that allows you to interface with your internet connected washing machines, you leave yourself open to this. Now, what I found really fascinating about this, as well as I wasn't surprised, was these kids reached out to the manufacturer and said, hey, we found this flaw. We can basically do anything we want because your API is completely open. There's no security around it. I just connect and send it the right API calls and it does whatever I tell it to do. And they went, yeah, that's nice. Like, you're not going to do anything about it? And they're like, if I got time, I'm going to go to Bed Bath & Beyond later, if that's still a thing. And I got things to do. That's not fixing my API. And I think and a lot of times hackers, when they do responsible disclosure as they have done, and they kind of get crickets from the manufacturer or the developer, then they feel, what's the word? Justified. They feel justified at that point in releasing said code. Now, there's a ethical and moral argument to be made on whether or not that's true. It does tend to get some people moving. And that's typically why they are doing that, where if they say, okay, I've reached out to the vendor has done nothing, and they tell us they're not going to do anything, well, then cool, we're going to release our findings to the world. And now you've got millions of college students or just people in general across the United States or the world even, who can access your washing machines for free, and your business, people, that's going to start complaints, and that's what's going to cause change in the system. There is some argument made on that civil disobedience idea of, we're kind of pushing for good change to be made, even though we are engaging in criminal activity to make it happen. Now, technically, the hackers, by releasing that information, that is not technically illegal. It's just, I guess, uncool, right?
Yeah.
But they're doing it for the right reasons. And maybe there's an argument to be made there that since they're doing it for the right reasons, hopefully they will affect a good change. No one's getting hurt per se, no real danger to life and limb, but maybe there is. Who knows? Maybe a washing machine gains sentience through its API, and that's what starts the robocalypse. It was IoT washing machines all along. Who knows?
It was the Samsung spin cycle that caused the robocalypse all along. Now, the thing that I thought was, like you said, they did their due diligence. They tried to report this. The company itself, that they tried to reach out to, they don't have a page where you can go and be like, hey, there's a bug, there's a security issue. They don't really have a place for that. So they just use their online contact form to try to let them know. Didn't hear anything about it. They tried to call them. That didn't work. And this was back in January. So at this point, almost 6 months ago. And
I'm sorry, you said this company is called Samsung? Samsung? Was it?
I just said Samsung spin cycle because I was thinking the Samsung washer dryer. That's all I was thinking.
But is that the manufacturer? Did they name the manufacturer?
It's CSC Service Works is the name of the company.
Oh, okay. So it's not Samsung. Because
it's not.
If Samsung doesn't have a flipping contact us support responsible disclosure, then wow.
No.
Okay.
When I think smart washers, I just think Samsung for some reason. That's the brand name that comes to my mind. But yeah, they tried to reach out. They used their online contact form, tried to call them. This was back in January. So they waited quite a bit longer than the 3 months that I guess researchers, it's kind of agreed upon. You give vendors some time to fix any vulnerabilities. So now they're like, okay, well, you didn't do anything about it. We tried several times to reach out to you. We're going to go ahead and tell the world. We're going to go ahead and release some more details about this. So again.
So the CSC Service Works claims to have more than 1 million laundry and vending machines.
Yeah.
So, man, this is a college kid's dream come true. Free laundry and free snacks.
Little scary as far as the fact that they haven't even really it's not even like they've said, oh yeah, we'll get to it. Like they apparently have not responded to it at all. So
yeah, just crickets.
Yeah. It's just like, it's not that big a deal.
I mean, what do you do after that? Honestly, I mean, I think they did their due diligence on trying to get a hold of them.
That's basically,
somebody reads that email.
Yeah. That's basically what they said. They didn't want to get with a lawsuit. So they were like, well, we told you, we did all we could do. So just thought that was kind of a fun little article there. We got one more that I wanted to touch on. And this one concerns a bug that's been fixed, but the bug that was fixed is a little concerning. So Apple's new iPhone update fixed a bug that resurfaced. In this article, it says deleted lewd photographs. But in general, just pictures that supposedly had been deleted were being resurfaced. And of course, in this case, that could be a big problem. So it was iOS 17.5 that arrived last week with one of the weirder problems. Deleted photos on their iPhones and iPads were suddenly reappearing. And there was actually a case where it wasn't even just, oh, I just deleted it and now suddenly it's back. There was at least one instance where somebody had sold an iPhone or an iPad to somebody else, had deleted all the media off of it. And this new owner was like, hey, there's some pictures on here, and stuff had resurfaced even after everything was deleted and it was sold to somebody else. That would freak me out, even if it wasn't anything crazy like exposing or anything like that. What if it was just like a...
But you never know.
Right. You don't know what could be sensitive information. Maybe it's just like a screenshot of a text or my bank account. And I'm like, oh, I want a screenshot to remember what's in it. And I delete it and I go and delete from my recently deleted or whatever. And then it resurfaces anyway. So people are wanting more information because there's been a patch, like it's been fixed. The bug's been fixed. But people are like, well, how was that allowed to happen in the first place? What is it that actually allowed this to go on? So that's kind of the topic at hand.
Software be doing what software be doing. That's just kind of how it goes. It's a magical world inside that black box of the code that runs your devices. And every now and then it does weird things that you didn't expect. Like I read the comment section of this, and the first comment I read was so funny. They talked about the headline. Hey, a lot of people they're upset with The Verge saying, could you stop using clickbait titles about nudes? That would be awesome. Everything is about, you could have just said deleted pictures or deleted images, but no, it's got to be nudes. And then someone said that the title of this says that update fixes a bug that resurfaced deleted nudes. Like resurfacing is something you do to your asphalt. You don't like, are you putting a new surface on pictures that you've deleted? Like that doesn't make any sense. And he talked about the grammar and the structure of why that was improper. It was just an all around bad title for this article. Now, the funny aside, obviously you don't want your sensitive information getting out there. We'll go ahead and put that tongue firmly in the old cheek there when I say sensitive. Because if it is images of yourself in a compromising position or image of compromising things, you don't want that. And I'm glad that Apple quickly got a fix out for us. So if you're running your Apple, make sure that, or your Apple device and iOS device, make sure you're updating that. Get that update in there, because God forbid that you're talking to Father O'Houlihan, who bought an iPhone, 12 from you last year, and he's like, I need to speak with you.
Wow.
I see some photos came up in my phone that I bought from you. That could be an embarrassing situation.
Well, I mean, I guess in that case, if it's Father O'Houlihan, as you stated, you just hop in the confessional booth, take care of it. You're all good. So you get that resolved. Somebody else in the comments, right, exactly. You mentioned that people in the comments were talking about this and how it was kind of a clickbaity headline for them to use that specifically. But somebody else in the comments has said that they were affected by this bug. It brought back photos they deleted a year ago. So this isn't just like, oh, I deleted something and then 5 minutes later it was back in my recent photos. I mean, these are old pictures that they thought were long gone. And then even after updating, the pictures were still there. So the update's just to prevent it from happening again. So if you have experienced this and your photos got resurfaced, I guess is the term they used, once you update, you just got to delete everything again. And then hopefully this update keeps it from happening again. I'd be curious. Fingers crossed, right? I'd be curious to know if there is anybody that's watching that's been affected by this.
Oh yeah, let us know. That'd be interesting. And like what pictures was it sensitive or not is what I'm asking.
Right, exactly. You don't need to go into detail. But like,
well, you see, it was up on this chair, right? And then Father O'Houlihan was in the background.
we don't need the play-by-play, but if this is a bug that...
I want to know details.
Right. If you were impacted by this, we do enjoy hearing that. Just to know, how far-reaching, I guess, is this? Is this like, okay, it was few and far between cases, not a whole lot of people were affected, it was just kind of a weird random thing, or is this like... Because I don't think I personally experienced it, but... just because I didn't doesn't mean a lot of people aren't. So I'd be curious to know. I know Daniel's not an iPhone user, so
it's not going to be a problem.
He's safe. He doesn't have to worry about it. He just has to worry about the Android banking malware that pops up every 2 weeks.
I'm safe from this. And I know, I download 3 or 4 banking apps a day just because they look awesome. I'm sure they're amazing in every shape and form.
Yeah.
Like, how many apps do you need? That's the real question. How many damned apps do you need on your flipping phone? I mean, come on, people. I look at my wife's phone. I'm like, oh, what are all these things? What do these do? Well, I downloaded this for that. How often do you do that? Well, I did it that one time, and well, delete the thing. Like, why are you? I don't get it.
You just forget.
I literally have 10 apps that I personally installed. Other than that, it came with the phone, and I deleted a bunch of the ones that did come with the phone.
Yeah, I'm a woman of many apps. I can relate to her struggle.
I bet you are.
I bet
you are.
All right.
I'm gonna send you a link.
Yeah, as long as you don't send it in Teams, we'll be fine. If it's in Teams, I won't click on it. But I think that's pretty much it. I just want to touch on that. I know the bug's being fixed, but just seemed like it was you're just going to gloss over that. Like, oh yeah, no big deal. And clearly people were affected by it. So I'd be curious to know if any of you watching were affected by it. But as far as our articles for this week, I know that's going to do it for us. I know it was a lot that we covered, but there was just a lot that came up. And then, like you said, there were a few that came in through LinkedIn that folks had tagged us in. And so we wanted to cover as much as we could. Daniel's going to be joining us remotely again next week. We hope that his wing is feeling a little, what'd you call it, a busted wing? We hope that it's feeling a little bit better.
Wing.
Yeah.
My broken wing. I'm a flightless baby bird.
You take your broken wing and learn to fly again. You'll be fine. But Daniel, thank you for joining us remotely, even during your recovery. We hope that
you want to see my stitches? No, I'm kidding.
I think I'll pass. If I want to see stitches, I'll just Google it, and then
they're
probably
blue.
Vomit a little bit. I get squeamish about that stuff, but I appreciate
you. Really?
You. I do. Yeah.
I would not have guessed.
It. All right. Look.
Honestly, I'm being honest. I'm not being facetious. Yeah, I would not have guessed you as someone squeamish to this kind of thing.
Yeah, I just I haven't gotten blood drawn in a while because I get freaked out. I psych myself out. You know?
Get that vasovagal response where you pass out.
I've never passed out, but I got to put headphones in. They're like, "Do you want to look and see what I'm doing?" I'm like, "What? Am I an insane person? Why would I want to look?"
Yeah, I don't want to watch this.
You're stealing my blood. I don't want to know about it.
Vampire.
Keep it right.
While I'm
Keep
being
it out of my line of sight.
insanguinated.
Anyway, I know that has nothing to do with cybersecurity or technology, but there you go. Now you know. I'm squeamish
It's
about it.
always a good day when you get to use the word insanguinate.
Yeah. Well, you got to use that word. I'll pass.
It was a good day for me.
Thank you all, of course, for being patient with us as we work our way through these articles. Lots going on this week, and I'm sure there will be lots more for us next week. So join us next time here on Technado. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's show, consider subscribing so you'll never miss a new episode.